Thank you, Your Excellency. In a global economy that is increasingly driven by innovation and technology, I would like to shed some light on one of the big topics roaming around these days: research, industrial development, and technology in the Emirates. Its importance, its opportunities, and its challenges. That is the topic of our first panel of the forum. If you can help me welcome onto the stage, starting off with our moderator for the panel, Professor John Defterius, Professor of Business, New York University, Abu Dhabi, and our esteemed panelists, Her Excellency Sara Al-Amiri, Minister of State for Advanced Technology, His Excellency Malik Al-Malik, Chairman, Techcom Group, Ms. Anna Karen Rosen, Managing Director, SAP, and Professor Eric Ching, President and University Professor at Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence.
Fatima, thanks very much for the introduction there. You had said in your opening comments here the importance of innovation to drive the economies today. I was looking at the OECD figures, looking at the average rate of GDP in R&D around the world is about 2.7%. But since His Excellency Dr. Sultan made this initiative coupled with Operation 300 billion, which is nearly $81 billion, there's been a great focus on reinvestment into R&D, growing at a clip of 20% a year. Operation 300 billion is clever because it encourages foreign direct investment, homegrown companies that we saw that received the awards today, but actually to use the UAE as a base for export, which I think is very important for the future as well. We all know the role of artificial intelligence and what it could do for manufacturing and R&D, but we know that it sparks innovation. It creates hubs for technology and collaboration as well, and it drives local employment. We had a chance with my NYU course to go to Strata and Al Ain Friday. In a short period of time, they've created more than 600 jobs for Emiratis, 88% of them for women, and they're exporting around the world. But more importantly, to my point on collaboration, they're looking at 5 other sectors today to diversify the manufacturing base in the country. And we saw many examples, including the defense players here in the UAE like Tawazun and Edge receiving awards because they're creating that ecosystem, if you will, for innovation. Your Excellency Sarah, it's great to have you. And just a few weeks ago, we were in this same auditorium at UAE Climate Tech, and the drive that Dr. Sultan was talking about to decarbonize, we heard that in the opening statement today. Where does that collaboration come from within the government and with the private sector, including the family trading groups, to drive decarbonization with innovation and technology, would you say? I think it's a key pillar of your portfolio today.
Thank you so much, John. Assalamu alaikum. As we mentioned during the Climate Tech Forum, and as we continue on with diversifying the economy and infusing and attaining the Operation 300 billion of increasing the contribution of the industrial sector, it is imperative, first off, and you mentioned this, John, in your opening statement, to build the right ecosystems. And when you're talking about decarbonization, it's not really about doing it for sustainability. Today, decarbonization actually creates value in the industrial sector. Creating the right efficiencies across the production spectrum and adopting the right technology solutions ensures that our production process does not decreases its emissions. Decarbonization becomes at play. We look at the whole of value chain of industrial sectors and industrial players. Sources of energy have lowered emissions, and also sourcing the right raw materials and utilizing the right raw materials to the maximum ability of those materials becomes imperative. Now, how do you go about doing that? The first is ensuring that you're putting in technological strategies, processes, and mechanisms across your value chain, where it is relevant, utilizing the right technologies to unlock the potential. And we work very closely with industrial players. The ministry does not operate as a traditional ministry. We operate in conjunction with our stakeholders. Our stakeholders have a seat at the table. Our teams work very closely with industrial players. And what that creates and fosters is the right blueprint, fit for purpose, that impacts the UAE's advancement and development across the industrial sector. And again, it's not only one element. You look at decarbonization, you look at efficiency, you look at adoption of technology, you look at creating more in-country value, you look at increasing the competitiveness of the workforce and creating more opportunities locally to be able to have the international export impact that we've seen in the numbers mentioned by His Excellency Dr. Sultan today. This is a holistic effort.
Yes.
And research also plays a vital role in ensuring that we're not only sustaining growth, but we're ensuring that investment happens across the value chain with time, creating the right value to unlock the potential of the industrial sector in the country.
Just a quick follow-up, and then in the second round, if you don't mind, I'd love to have you put your space cap as chairwoman of the Space Agency. But I wanted to touch upon your second pillar of your portfolio, which is public education, because you mentioned education. How important is it to, at the early stages of public education, to plant the seeds for the STEM studies within the country so you can continue this for a generation, this drive, would you suggest?
So the drive at education is a holistic effort. So it's not only a focus on STEM, you need a focus across all the different pillars of development. And in terms of the key elements of sustainability, there needs to be an understanding on the unlock of potential and unlock of industries across that. And we're working very closely across the schools, with our COP28 presidency team here in the UAE, together with a sustainability portfolio, to ensure that the right awareness is there, the right understanding of opportunities across our industrial sector is instilled, and the right opportunities are again unlocked for students that are leaving the secondary phase of education, entering into tertiary education that creates then the value for the economy.
I was pleasantly surprised at Strata, by the way, to see from the manufacturing floor to the front office in engineering, the level of emiratisation that's taken place and the expansion of the manufacturing base. So thanks for addressing that question. Malik Al-Malik, I think it's excellent to have Dubai Holding Asset Management here today to give a sense how a holding group drives innovation and R&D internally. And I think if you wanted to cover it because of your vast experience, how do we engage here with this government and those in the private sector to get the family trading groups involved in that process as well? They represent such a large share of trading, and do you collaborate with them as well?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think if we go back to the history of 23 years when the group has been formed, and I'm referring to TCOM Group, which is part of the holding asset management, the primary reason for the creation of that group was actually to diversify the economy and contribute to the non-standard sector. There has been an identification of 6 sectors that can create sustainable economic diversification, but also economic and commercial sustainability for the group itself. And to name these 6 were, of course, technology, media, education, industrial design, and science. So on the industrial front, today we house more than 800 industrial partners. Half of them already produce and manufacture from Dubai. Their coverage, their geographic coverage extend actually from the local supply to the regional, and some of them actually qualify to be homegrown, and today they export to the rest of the world. And actually,
did you say 800?
800 industrial partners, yeah.
Actually, as a partner.
So, and the type of manufacturing that happen in our industrial park varies from international brands like Unilever that does hundreds of millions of bottles on a personal care to the rest of the region, to probably you've seen some of the recognized name here, carpet business, homegrown, that today qualify to be probably one of the top 5 carpet business globally. And some of the actually ecosystem development responsibilities extend beyond the sector itself So the other sectors contribute indirectly to the industrial front. If we take technology, actually, in fact, technology has been internationally, our ICT park has been cited internationally that it is one of the main enabler for the other economic sector, including industrial. So without the technology availability within this region, actually, you will always have a gap in actually the continuous development of the sector. And the fact of having 15 global innovation centers done by companies like SAP and the rest actually have an indirect and direct effect to the industrial. If we look at the science park, where we have tens of labs that have thousands of material that create either fragrance formula or food flavors or even investment in material science, those were qualified actually to become even not only the creation of the formula itself, but actually goes and extend to create a factory and manufacturing capabilities. I can give you an example of one of the main pharmaceutical, I think you know about Himalaya, this has been announced, started with their own innovation center in Dubai, but today have their factory under development with an investment of 120 million to create specific product developed in the lab itself, but also manufactured in Dubai.
Great, excellent. We'll come around again to, I wanted to have you think about artificial intelligence, if you can, Malik, in the follow-up question, just to see how you're scoping it. But we'll come back to you just after we finish the roundtable here with the other two participants. Anna Corinne Rosen, we've had a chance to meet before, and I was thinking about the front cover of The Economist recently with the cowboy on a horse, with the U.S. saying it's riding high because of its innovation. There's a lot of things that aren't functioning very well in the United States right now, but when it comes to reinventing itself, it's great, and it has the highest investment in percentage of GDP in R&D at 3.4%. I'd love to have you address the legacy of Saab here and the connectivity between defense and aerospace and the level of innovation it creates as a cluster in a country like the UAE. What's been the model here? Thanks.
Thank you. And Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a true pleasure to be here. I represent the defense industry, defense and security today, and I'm happy to be a representative for the industry. Also, I have to use my home country, which is Sweden, where Saab comes from, as an example, especially focusing on R&D and innovation. Because looking back 100 years, 1 century only, Sweden was one of the poorest countries in Europe. And today, I mean, we are on all the top rankings as a nation when it comes to innovation rankings and so on. And we were not fortunate, like our neighbors Norway, to have oil as a build-up. So it really is, I would say, the industry side of things that have contributed to the success. And talking about R&D as a percentage of GDP, Sweden is at 3.7, which is number 1 in Europe. So also from my industry, Saab has been investing, I looked more than 10 years back, between 20 and 25% of our sales into R&D. So I think it's a given that having the investment of R&D is significant for success and for future innovations.
Right.
I also want to highlight...
well, I wanted you to also drill in how you've taken that expertise from Sweden and applied it to the UAE here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it was going back to, I mean, we've been active in the UAE since the 80s as a company and as providing products both for the armed forces and also for security systems. But it was really, I would say, the turning point was in 2017, 2018, because then we were approached by the government here, by high-level stakeholders we were given an opportunity, really, to invest and to have a 100% foreign-owned entity. So we really were the first. And of course, this was the collaboration with specifically Tawazen, but also the Department of Economic Development, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technologies, as well as of Economy, several ministries. I think that strength in collaboration and the push from the government here made it possible for us really to. And we set up in Tawazen Industrial Park. We today have more than, we have 150 employees as Saab in the UAE, and we are developing and manufacturing new products. We have one product here actually these days as our first made in the Emirates, DeployNet. It's a communications 5G network. We're very proud that this is an outcome from this investment, from this collaboration, and the first, I hope, of many.
Great. Professor Eric Ings, great to have you. It's early days for you at MBZ AI, Mohammed bin Zayed Artificial Intelligence University. It's incredible, even the thought of putting that here to drive R&D. Your legacies at Carnegie Mellon and other universities as well, but I wanted to single out Carnegie Mellon because what it's done to Pittsburgh in that region after the era of steel is extraordinary, and the cluster it's created. Do you want to apply that model to what you're creating and what's being done here in the UAE? Are there similar comparisons of how a university can help drive a cluster like MIT in Massachusetts, of course, Silicon Valley in California?
Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak on behalf of our university. We heard a lot about the R&D in this conversation, and we seem to see that R&D come from all over the place. There are industrial labs, there are universities, but the very reason for university to be playing a unique role is because the type of R&D that university provides are different from the industry. It's like every individual has in our brain, a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. One is doing abstract thinking and innovation, the other is to do the real work. And this is the relationship of a university toward its ecosystem. For example, you mentioned about Carnegie Mellon's role in Pittsburgh's rejuvenation in economy, after the steel industry fell, and also the role of Stanford and MIT in their own ecosystem. I think we can summarize perhaps the role of university in the following ways. One, of course, university is a place to create knowledge. We now see, for example, AI being used in many different sectors, especially in our industrial automation and other automation process. And the software are produced in many industries already, but the mathematics foundation are usually produced in the university. The second function, of course, is the production of people. The talents, all the innovators, all the engineers, if they ask where they come from, they usually are trained in a good university. And then thirdly is the university's direct role, in the ecosystem and in the cultural environment. I think university provides a unique environment to protect and also to stimulate innovation so that researchers can do their work, invent their knowledge, and train their people in the environment that is different from an industry. I think that's where I see the unique value and also the way a university can function. So I was very fortunate to be selected to lead this university, and I must thank my chairman, Dr. Sotang here. He actually had this vision 3 years ago with the leadership in this country to already foresee the importance of AI in the country's economy. Now, without the saying, I think everybody, after seeing GPT and so forth, start to realize, the power of AI. But it is important that we see it 3 years ago, so that at this point we already have a great university that is already ranked top 20 in the world to prepare and to provide that kind of potential for the country to attract top talents, to continue to train top talents into our industry. So I think down the road, our university, together with many of our other universities in the region, can still provide a pivotal role, in creating a innovative and a vibrant dynamics between the industry and the academic to take the problem into campus, study them in an in-depth fashion, and create robust and sustainable solutions rather than a quick fix Band-Aid solutions, to the industry. That's how I see the university provides the value to society.
It's a very clear vision. Very quickly, if you can, do you have any shortage of desire to go to the university because in these early stages? And can it be a hub, international hub, like we see at NYU, where we have students coming from the Far East and coming from America to study in the UAE, both at home here and internationally? Do you see it developing at a rapid pace as an international hub for AI?
Oh, definitely. We still have a long way to go to become a great university, right? We just heard that in many countries where education plays an important role, the percentage R&D, in GDP is, close to 3 or more percentage. So this is the money used as an investment into the long-term return. It is really planting the seed of future innovation. And I think here we can do more, in creating more universities of this kind, or maybe enlarge the existing university to go depth and go wider in covering the scope of knowledge. I think that's usually, a iterative process. The better you make the environment friendly and inspiring, then the more you can attract talents to come and join, and also train and inspire the region, the people here to join, this, a very exciting movement. So I hope to see that, we function as a seed, to really create that kind of inspiration and also possibilities.
Great. Your Excellency, Sarah Amiri, I did say I was going to circle back about the impact of space. And Anna, if you can follow Sarah on this, the importance of having the space agency. We've seen astronaut Al-Zuyudi communicating extremely well with the people, sparking that dream of going to space, and then what it brings back to the UAE on the ground in terms of innovation. What are you trying to drive with this? And I know even the UAE serving as a leader, as we talked about at the World Government Summit, on space diplomacy, because it's in a whole industry around it. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so the space sector is a very good example of how to develop an industry completely from scratch. So we started a decade and a half ago from a human-centered effort, so building capabilities and know-how in design and development of complex systems. Today, most of our programs have now transitioned to create their necessary impact in the private sector. And today as well, in the Make It in the Emirates Forum, on the back of our second major exploration mission, we are announcing 30 offtakes for the private sector to produce parts for our upcoming spacecraft that's due for launch in 2028 to the asteroid belt. What this takes us is a better understanding on how, one, to develop knowledge-intensive sectors, two, to create opportunities for the private sector. So most of our funds today are going with either upskilling and increasing the production capabilities of existing sectors, to supporting startups with actual contracts on the ground. We, on the same announcement 2 days ago, provided 2 startups with the opportunity to design and develop the lander on the spacecraft. So this is unprecedented. These are 2 individuals who've worked with us previously as engineers, but today have started up their companies, moved from the public sector to the private sector, and are creating opportunities for them through actual contractual capabilities. So the tool is very easy in terms of being able to fund these programs for upskilling in terms of their impact and outcomes, to ensure that you're providing the necessary opportunities within our current programs and projects. And the Space Fund also works on building demand for the sector. So we funded several programs to actually offtake the data, and the analytics comes on the back of space systems. And creating that demand ensures that you're creating a sustainable sector and also linking it to the global value chain. And that's just one example of how the UAE is working in its industrial strategy to build new sectors and infuse opportunities for those new sectors locally, but also with an international outlook.
Wow, fantastic. Anna, defense, the link between defense, aerospace, and now space itself in terms of how it drives R&D and innovation in your view. It's incredibly important, I know, in the United States, that relationship, because it spawns all these different technologies. Can you touch on that quickly?
No, I totally agree, and I think we are not the only defense company that also is active in the space domain and security, aerospace and security domain. So they go hand in hand, and of course development in one area will have spillover and good effects in other areas. And of course, I mean, industry is all about, we're here to make a profit and to make money. So it needs to be sustainable, just as Her Excellency just said now. If there is not this collaboration between the customer, and in these cases it's always governments, most of the time it really is governments. So that needs to be driven from there. And then I can't enough emphasize the strength of a good collaboration. It's crucial from our side to have that collaboration with the government and the ongoing communications, also the end users. And in this case, I also want to emphasize collaboration with academia and industries, because if we don't find the right people or the right research areas that we need help with, because they need to be funded, it's also a limiting factor. So I can only...
You're a big proponent, is
yes.
what the message is here. Very good. Also, what you suggested by government to send the right market signals to the private sector. For example, like with an operation 300 billion, it does send a signal that the level of importance and collaboration with government's there. Malik, we only have less than a minute, but can you address, even in a holding company in TCOM, the importance of AI? Can you do that in 30 seconds for me? Are you thinking about it? Are you exploring it?
Yeah, and I think as our key responsibility is the enablement of the sector itself. So we're thinking of how do we do the collaboration between the source of these AI technologies and for a wider economic contribution, i.e. the industrial, for example. So we do cultivate the relation between the source of these technologies to our other economic sector. And I refer to the AI, for example, technologies. How will this actually contribute to our customer? How will factories become more efficient? How will they adapt? And we've started seeing some of the AI experiment even in factories that are housed in our side. So on the other side, maybe the academia side, which we have more than 29,000 students with 800 program, we started encouraging our academic partner also to start deploying some of this technology-related education for a wider economic value. So that's, I think, more than the internal own capabilities, but our duty is to make sure that all the sectors are benefiting from
it's very excellent. That 30 minutes flew by very quickly, and we covered a lot of territory, so I appreciate that. Your Excellency, Sarah, Mary, nice to see you again. Thank you, because you're going to see the students on Monday, and we greatly appreciate it. Malik, nice to see you. And Corinne, nice to see you in person here. And Professor Eric Ying, thank you very, very much.